Hey guys, welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Leading off the show today is Mark Ellis.
Welcome one and all to the best movie news show in the entire galaxy. My name is Mark, and this is Collider Movie Talk, 100% squeak-free or your money back. On today's show, we are talking about what the Hulk storyline could be going forward, and Jack, I guess he didn't have a cow to trade for those magic beans. Ashley, who's joining me today?
Also here is Jeremy Jahns.
I don't even know if I have anything. I now have my head on Jack and the Beanstalk because Rocha and I got into a very deep conversation about it before we started here, so that's what's on my mind.
Also here, Perri Nemiroff.
Wasn't it so nice of Dennis to let me borrow his T-shirt? Thanks, Dennis.
Hey, look at that.
Also here, Patient Zero, John Rocha.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. Movie talk today. I'm going to power through what's going on with my body. It's betraying me right now. I want to say two things. One, Ashley Mova, your hair looks fantastic today.
Oh, thank you. You're so nice
It's
to me
true.
today. I shouldn't have made fun of you for being sick.
Oh, no, I'm not sick. I'm just a little under the weather.
Okay.
And my man, Mark Ellis, I don't want to hear merely Mark Ellis anymore. I want to hear manly Mark Ellis. That's what he is. There's my comments for today.
Rocha has he's the guy who has nerd flu. And so he's just going to try to talk through it. We all went to New York Comic Con this past weekend. You know it's going to happen to somebody. It happened to Rocha. He's in denial right now. So let's all just play along and talk about how healthy you look, like a young man in his prime that we know you to be. All right, we are going to get to today's top movie news stories. Ashley Mova, what's up first?
Due to some rights issues not yet resolved between Universal and Marvel Studios, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner / Hulk character currently does not have a standalone movie in the works. However, if MCU head honcho Kevin Feige has his way, he'll be able to explore a type of standalone story for the big guy inside some upcoming Marvel releases. Speaking with Cinemablend about his character in the upcoming Thor Ragnarok, Mark Ruffalo teased the storyline saying, "So basically, Kevin pulled me aside before this and said, if we were going to do a standalone Hulk movie, what would it be? And I said, I think it should be this, 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 and this, and this, and end up like this. And he's like, I love that. Why don't we do that in the next 3 movies, starting with Thor 3, and then we go into Avengers 3 and 4. And I was like, that sounds great. And so we're at the beginning of this arc. Ellis, what do you think about Hulk's story told over 3 films? And should Marvel try and get the rights back for the Hulk?
Well, I love these quotes from Mark Ruffalo because it makes it sound like everything going on at the MCU just takes place in some sort of treehouse, and they're just drawing this up in the sand like, we don't need to worry about the comic books. Hey, what's the actor want to do who's playing the Hulk, and we'll just go with that. I think there's a little more that they put into what the storyline for the Hulk is going to be, but I have no doubt that Kevin Feige and Ruffalo had conversations about, can we pull off a standalone movie? Can we get the rights back from Universal? Because Universal is the studio that has the rights to make a Hulk standalone movie, and that is a tough negotiation play, and it might not be worth it for Marvel if they're able to get so much out of the Hulk in these other movies. And frankly, that's the way I've always felt about the Incredible Hulk. I think the standalone movie that they did with Edward Norton is probably the best possible way you can make a Hulk film on its own. But then what we saw from the big guy in the Avengers was like, that's how you utilize that character. Is he's not necessarily the person that has to carry a movie on his gigantic shoulders. I think he's great as a side character that comes in and we all walk out of the theater and we're like, he was the best part of the movie. So if you're telling me that even though he's not headlining a movie necessarily, it's going to have a 3-film arc that heavily involves Hulk, I love that concept. And I think that Mark Ruffalo is somebody, Rocha, who really has gravitated towards this character, maybe in a way that he didn't even anticipate way back when he had to step in as the replacement for Edward Norton. Seems like he loves playing Hulk, and it seems like he really has a firm grip on exactly what his future is going to be. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, sometimes the third time is a charm, right? We had Ed Norton, and we had Eric Bana, and this is the right Hulk. Mark Ruffalo's been fantastic in bringing him to life, and all the things he does with Bruce Banner. Everything is going on with him. He does a great job in all these movies. And the reason people are even remotely considering wanting to see another Hulk standalone movie is because of Ruffalo's performance and because he's a fantastic actor when he brings his character to life. And I think this is one of the most amazing loopholes I've ever seen in my entire life. we can't figure out the rights, but what we're going to do is we're just going to stretch it out over 3 films. We're essentially going to direct a film within 3 films. So we're going to put it in like this, a film in 3 acts over 3 films. That's brilliant. You don't have to fight for the rights at all. Just put all this, have him have scenes with certain people and going through it, and then the scene going to pick up again in the next film. Then the scene going to pick up again in the next film. I think this is a brilliant workaround by intelligent people. And I love that Ruffalo's like, it should be this, 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 and this, and this. And so it's like, he tells that he's been really focused on the story and understanding what the whole character is all about and what he can do with these characters, with the other Avengers and other characters in the Hulk storyline. But what is it that Universal owns the rights to? That's what I want to know. Do they own the rights to General Ross, to Betsy, or do they, to all these characters in the Hulk universe, except for the Hulk? Do they own those characters? So could they appear? Could they not appear? So that's what I'm looking forward to see how they work it around. But that being said, I think this is a brilliant workaround. If you're going to do it this way, this works, and it gets us excited. And by the end of this 3-movie arc, maybe we're ready for a Hulk standalone film once and for all.
Right. Well, the rights issue could be as simple as that Universal has the ability to make any Incredible Hulk standalone movie that Marvel okays. Marvel does not have the ability to do that themselves at their own studio. Right. And you just wonder if the character would get tired of not having their own standalone movie, Jeremy. So do you think at some point the Hulk is going to feel like Katherine Heigl in 27 Dresses, where it's always the bridesmaid and never the bride?
I love the. I locked up at that reference for a second. I was like, wow, you're taking it back to 2007, 2008.
I will take
like
you all
that.
the way up, but I will provide a nice, safe trampoline for you to land.
To answer that question, I also find it really interesting, the rights and the logistics, because he's obviously in movies, and he was in the Avengers, so that's not a standalone movie. Now, I haven't seen Thor, so I'm going to hypothesize a movie that some people out there have seen.
Riley's
so I find that
seen
a little
it.
strange.
Mark Riley's seen it. I have
Whatever.
to see him every day at the office. I do not like his face right now.
And so I start to think, oh well, it's a Thor and Hulk movie. It's kind of a buddy movie. So that's just like 2 mains, which more mains look like they kind of tack on and it becomes an ensemble again. But can you have 2 people, including the Hulk, and that's not a standalone movie? So can you have the Hulk and someone else come in and that person's like, all right, I'm going to go back to outer space in the first act, and now it's a standalone Hulk movie, technically? Right. Can you work around it like that? I find it interesting. I think his wheelhouse is among an ensemble. I think his standalone story, we saw that with the Ed Norton one. I don't know what else you can do but address him and what he is, unless you're going to cure him of his Hulkism or separate him like they did in the 90s, where he has a little kid on his shoulder and the big Hulk is walking around. I don't know if you guys remember that arc. That happened. That's real. So we'll see what happens. I do find it interesting that, like the treehouse metaphor that you said, I will one-up that and say it's any drive to Vegas or standing next to someone at a urinal. That's where all my ideas come from.
He out 27 dressed me, and now we go to Perri Nemiroff. Do you think that let me start with this one, Perri. Do you think that getting the rights back from Universal and having Marvel and the MCU create the ability for themselves to make a Hulk standalone movie is something they should put a priority on, or do you like the way that they're attacking this?
No, I like the way they're attacking it. And I think the way they're attacking it and Universal's mentality, or at least what I think their mentality is right now, means that's not going to happen. If they are going with this approach, and I love this idea because, Captain America, Thor, we have so many characters with their own movie already. Why not explore a character in a different format? This is the kind of tactic that's going to continue to keep the Marvel Cinematic Universe fresh and different from film to film. But I think the way it breaks down is I think Marvel and Disney have the production rights to make movies incorporating Hulk, but then Universal has the distribution rights to distribute standalone Hulk movies. So if Marvel made a movie with Hulk as the title character, then it would be distributed by Universal. And Disney's a big company, and they're perfectly capable of distributing their own films. They don't want to do that. They struck that deal with Sony and Spider-Man because that was how things panned out with that. They're not going to do it in this case, and I also don't think Universal is ever going to sell those rights, or at least not in the near future, back to Marvel. So I think we're in a position where it's going to stay this way, and that Marvel and Disney are using what they have in the best possible way.
Do you think that this it was going to build more anticipation for Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War? Because clearly the Hulk is utilized heavily in the marketing for that, so it almost feels like it's his movie as much as it is Thor. So do you think that the appetite has been more whetted for fans out there who really want to see Hulk?
I think that's the case. I mean, I really can only speak for myself, but given what I've read about how Thulk, Jeez, it's post Comic Con. I'm not as sick as Rocha.
You just shipped Thulk.
Yeah,
Thulk,
I
you
did.
shipped him.
Thulk.
I love
Is
it.
that not a thing?
It should be now.
What was the shipping in Age of Ultron?
Perri.
No.
No, I'm sorry. My bad.
Oh, we need,
My bad.
It's all right. I'm going to give you a pass on that today. I was talking about Robert Downey Jr. and Science Bros, right?
Yeah, Science
all right,
Bros.
whatever. I'm making my own one, Thulk. So given that we're getting a Thulk movie, and in that movie, the quotes that I've heard about how he's being incorporated seems like it's being done in a way that separates Bruce Banner from Hulk, and to me, that's the perfect starting point. That I'm going to get a little taste of that in Ragnarok, and then in the movie that comes next, I'm going to want to see this character take that step forward. So, just for me personally, that seems to be a great starting point to make me even more excited for Infinity War in a way that I wasn't quite excited for it before, beyond just seeing all these great characters come together and fight Thanos.
Yeah, Jeremy, I mean, that's the real question. Is there any way that you could have been more jacked for Infinity War before, and does this news do that?
Yeah, it interests me. Like, my baseline is to get fascinated by the phrasing, because when they're like, oh, he came to me and said, hey, how about we do something for Thor 3, and then we move it over to Infinity War, the Infinity movies, it's like, was that not planned? Did you guys adjust it? Was this conversation in 2011? It interests me, but I always felt the Hulk would be used, so it's not like I'm finding out for the first time that in Infinity War, I almost called him Thor.
I love how I have my whole own unique vocabulary now. So
Rolls.
it's Thulk and Hanra. Get
The
on
Perri
it.
Dictionary. Check it out online.
It rolls right off the tongue. All I know is that Universal's like, we're going to hold on to the Hulk, and we'll show you how to launch a real universe.
All right, Rocha, you get the last word, and we'll see if you
Sure.
can get all your words out clean.
Okay. Let's do it. No, listen, whatever they got to do, figure it out. We saw this with Marvel and Sony, right? They figured out the Spider-Man situation. Like I said, third time's a charm. Everybody loves Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Sometimes you just have to go through a couple iterations. I think if you combine the first two Hulk films, that would have been a fantastic Hulk origin movie. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. So you want to do standalone, right? What you do, work this out. There's a market for it. There's interest for it. Ruffalo has brought back interest to the character. Figure out what you need to figure out. And as the public responds to the Hulk storyline going through these three films, I think Universal will come to the table and figure it out, because they're in the business of making money. And if they can make money by doing a standalone film with Marvel's input and help, then do it, and I think it'll set it up. So to me, this is a very smart move all around by everybody involved.
It worked with Spider-Man. It might work with Fantastic Four. We'll have to see how that plays itself out. And then if Hulk is successful in this 3-movie arc where he, first of all, gets to survive the Infinity War and beyond, then you're right, you could see them eventually negotiate the rights back or try to strike some sort of deal with Universal. But in the meantime, it just gets me all that much more excited to see Thor Ragnarok whenever we are blessed with the chance to do it. All right, Ashley, let's move on to our next story that is going to disappoint some people who live in towns with magic beans.
According to THR, Disney is pulling their excuse me. Disney
Thulk.
is pulling.
Say
I'm already
Thulk.
getting sick. I'm already getting sick.
Rocha,
Disney is
please.
pulling their Jack and the Beanstalk
It doesn't
fairy
happen like
tale
that.
entitled Gigantic from their schedule and canceling the movie indefinitely. Inside Out co-writer Meg LaFauve and Tangled's Nathan Greeno were directing the project, with Frozen songwriters Robert Lopez and Kirsten Anderson Lopez writing songs for the movie previously set for November 25th, 2020. In a statement released from the studio, Walt Disney and Pixar Animation Studios president Ed Catmull said, "It's impossible to know when we begin a project how the creative process will unfold, and sometimes, no matter how much we love an idea or how much heart goes into it, we find that it just isn't working. With Gigantic, we've come to that point, and although it's a difficult decision, we are ending active development for now. We are focusing our energies on another project that has been in the works, which we'll be sharing more about soon, now set for Thanksgiving 2020. Rocha, what are your thoughts on Disney canceling their Gigantic movie?
Well, I think it's a shame because we have so many incredibly talented people involved from two separate films. You know, the songwriters from Frozen, Tangled's Nathan Greeno, and like you said, Inside Out co-writer Meg LaFauve. That's a lot of talented people with successful track records involved in this project. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. Last night I talked to a couple of my friends who are executives in animation studios, and they both said, after they slammed the door, they both said that their issues with all they're hearing is they couldn't crack the story. They just could not crack the story. And sometimes that happens, unfortunately. It happened with Pixar's Newt. The same thing happened. People wanted that Newt thing to work, and they just couldn't crack the story and couldn't make it work. So sometimes it doesn't work out. No matter how many talented people you have on it, they just can't find their way into the story. And we saw with Jack and the Giant Slayer, that film was made for $150 million, and it barely made that much money overall. So maybe the interest for a Jack and the Beanstalk story isn't as high as they thought, and maybe they couldn't find a new and inventive way to do it. So the only thing I feel is that I'm bummed by it, but they said there's an original feature that they're focusing on. That's the rumor. The original feature they're focusing on that'll come out in Thanksgiving 2020. So maybe that's a story they could crack a lot easier than the Jack and the Giants, which has been around for a long, long time. We've seen it for many, many years, different iterations, musicals, what have you, about Jack and the Beanstalk. So to me, all it is just it's unfortunate, but if you can't make it work, sometimes you got to cut your losses and move on.
Look, a lot of times on this show, we just state our opinions. I'm going to state a fact right now. The Jack and the Beanstalk lore peaked with Mickey and the Beanstalk.
Yeah.
When Mickey and all of his buddies, they climbed, they found the giant, they ate a lot of food, and it was great. Charlie McCarthy narrates it. It's perfect. It's literally a 20-minute perfection of entertainment. And then you got Jack and the Giant Slayer, which I enjoyed more than most people. I think it was a fine adventure. I think it is an interesting story. No, Jeremy, it's not actually based on history. It's actually an allegory, like what Rocha was saying. And I think that if you plant magic beans and a beanstalk grows out, you can learn a little bit of something about yourself along the way. How did they not crack this, though? That's the question I put. You seem perplexed.
It's not what?
There was never a guy named Jack. There was never a cow that was sold for magic. There probably was a cow sold for magic beans when the story first came out.
I love how you correct that. There probably was a cow, but there were never Jacks in the world.
Those
are not real.
There was definitely a cow at some point. There were definitely beans. They were purported to be magic. And when you combine everything in this story, it just... How did you not crack the creative process? I mean, the only thing I can think of is as somebody who actually got to visit Pixar. Remember, Ashley? That was a fun day. We got to go to Pixar. We got to see how the creative process works. And Disney Pixar, when they make these animated films, there's a lot of heads in the room. And they all talk, and they all go back and forth. And if everybody in that room is not satisfied, then they move on to something else. It's just hard for me to imagine what about this story they couldn't get through.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the magic about the Disney Pixar world is that they'll take a story no one's really clamoring. But at no point was I like, I need to see a Rapunzel movie. And then I saw Tangled, and I was like, that was an excellent movie, So that's the magic of what they do. No one was like, I need to see what happens in a bug's life. I don't know, bugs. They're just so... I'm sure the grasshoppers are mean. They take something you didn't know you wanted, package it, give it to you. You're like, I'm so glad I have that. And I didn't even think to ask for it. So with Jack and the Beanstalk, it's an interesting enough... I'll call it an acid trip, where this kid gets magic beans, trades a cow, a beanstalk goes up, there's a giant who wants to eat him, which maybe that's we can't get around that. I don't know.
He did steal from the giant. I will point that out. He was he transgressed on the giant's property,
You're right.
and he took his food.
Not just the food.
Which did seem
He
plentiful.
needed it. He needed it though.
Yeah.
His family was hungry, and then golden eggs, and singing harps, and it's a rich movie, and I'm with you that I enjoyed Jack the Giant Slayer more than most also. Because there's something... Maybe it's because I watched that weird 80s version that Rocha and I were talking about before. It's like a play that they recorded, and they just said, hey, it's kind of a movie or a show or something. But Jack and the Beanstalk is a story that is very much part of my childhood. And just that image alone, I don't see how those minds couldn't get it going. So I feel like there had to be some sort of legal logistic. I don't know. But I feel like that would have been great. It's kind of a shame we're not getting it.
Perri Nemiroff, break down the facts for us. What do you think really went down with Gigantic, and why we're no longer going to get that Jack and the Beanstalk story?
I think what really went down is that they tried to make this work from a story perspective and from a creative perspective, and it just didn't pan out the way that they wanted to. I'm most disappointed because this is an incredible team of people that would have been behind this movie, and that to me would have said, oh, this movie has a ton of potential. If the folks over at Disney Animation are saying, you know what, it didn't really go the way that we thought, I think we got to pull the plug on this one. Even though I'm disappointed, fine by me, because it's companies not pulling the plug on movies at this point that leads us to getting a whole bunch of garbage that people frequently call cash grabs. Because if it's not up to your standards, why move forward with it? Especially when you're talking about an animated feature that takes years and years and so many people. I mean, really, when you go to that Pixar building and you see every single department and how many people are in every single department and what it takes to just like lift someone's eyelid in one of those movies, it's absolutely insane. So good for them for making this decision. I'm sure whatever else they're working on is going to be great too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ashley, I know that when you and I got to go to Pixar, you were paying a lot more attention than I was. I was mainly focused on getting more free giant cookies because the cookies up there are gigantic. What do you think went on, speaking of gigantic, with this movie?
I don't know. I really couldn't care less about a Jack and the Beanstalk movie. Again, like Jeremy said, I never really thought I would want the movies that they come out with, but when they present it, they are amazing. And if anything, Disney and Pixar, they know what they're doing, so I trust their decisions, and I'm more interested to see now what movie they're working on that's going to come out in Thanksgiving of 2020, so I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah. I echo Perry's sentiments where it's like when you see how much effort goes into just like one frame of a Pixar movie, just speaking for myself, I'd quit. I'd be like, that's how hard you have to work just to get one. I'm leaving. I'm going to go work somewhere else. I don't want to do that. But they have such a great team of dedicated artists and professionals there that my hat's off to them. When I see a Pixar movie, I have not looked at it the same way. Even the way they use like light and shadow, it's crazy. They didn't want to do it all with Gigantic, so hopefully we'll see something else that will make Jeremy think was actually based on a real event. All right, let's move on to buy or sell. Ashley's going to give us a premise. We'll say whether we buy it or sell it, and hilarity and frivolity will ensue.
Now that the new Halloween redo is entering production and Jamie Lee Curtis is reprising her role as everyone's favorite final girl, Laurie Strode, the immediate question after her announced return was how. It was quickly answered by the powers that be, revealing then that the new Halloween movie would ignore every movie in the franchise except the original and part 2. Not so fast, says the creator himself. John Carpenter opened up and addressed that question, revealing that they are actually only acknowledging the first movie in the series. Carpenter said, Jamie Lee Curtis talked to the director. Her part was written into the script, and they had this idea. It's kind of a, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost an alternate reality. It quickly picks up after the first one, and it pretends that none of the other sequels were made. It's going to be fun. There's a really talented director, and it was well written. I'm impressed. Perri, buy or sell the new Halloween movie, ignoring all the other Halloween movies except the original.
I'm so caught in the middle on this one. I'm gonna wing the buy or sell at the end of whatever I have to say right now. So on the one hand, I am not especially attached to any Halloween movie minus the original. That is just, I can watch and rewatch, and I have enjoyed other installments, but really nothing can come anywhere close to comparing to that. I think they've jumbled the mythology so much over the years that, you know, it's diminishing returns, and a lot of people know how strongly I feel about the Rob Zombie films. I didn't like them at all. I wish they didn't exist, to be honest. But with this, I mean, I don't know. It seems like it's becoming too much of a trend to go back and just pretend certain movies didn't exist. We have the same thing happening with Terminator right now. And I understand certain movies and franchises are better than others, but if we could just keep going back and saying, well, forget all of that, forget years and years of material that fans of the franchise have at least been paying attention to, I don't really know. Something about that just doesn't sit right with me. Then again, what are they going to do with the films that came before it? And I'm afraid that all the nonsense that they've established in those films could hurt this one. So if it's getting around that, I'm okay with it. So, you know what? I'm going to buy it. Yeah. See, I had to think it through and speak it through before I actually commit. I'm going to buy it. My biggest question, though, is if Halloween 2 is not in the equation, what happens to the relationship between Michael and Laurie. So I'm curious to see if that changes. It doesn't seem like it's something that can change to me, but I don't know.
So, Jeremy, it was like Perri was stuck in a building, right? And she's trying to find her way to the top. And I'm already up there. And I'm ready to shout from the rooftops and let all the city hear my take. And then you are there with me or no?
Well, I don't know what your take is, so
the
I
look
don't
in your
know.
eye and the look in my eye.
I would say I'm buying this for sure. I think this is a great move, and this is why. Because, well, first of all, I'm interested because you said, are we keeping the relationship between Michael Myers and Laurie out of this conversation? Is the movie's been out for like 7 decades, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. Halloween 2 was where it was established that she was his sister. If Halloween 2 doesn't exist, there is nothing written that says Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister. Also, the thing I was thinking about is if it takes place after 2, he's a man who's been shot in the eyes and blown up. I don't know. All right, so he's supernatural at that point, and that's what that established. Halloween 1, he was a psychopath who simply killed people. It's like going back to Scream, where Billy Loomis was talking about it's scarier when there's no motive. You don't know why this guy is doing this, but Halloween 1 is showing that the scariest thing is the boogeyman. The boogeyman is just a person. He's not supernatural. He's just a guy. So if they went after Halloween 2, you'd have to at least humor the guy's supernatural, because he took bullets to the eyes and he got blown up. But now we're just dealing with the man. So last thing that happened, Cody, put up the spoiler. All right, thanks. So the last thing that happens, he takes a coat hanger to the neck, falls over the balcony, and then he's gone. That's the last she ever saw of this guy. I don't know if he's been on her mind. Maybe he has. Maybe she still wakes up in cold sweats and nightmares like Ripley with the alien. I don't know. But I think there's more that you can do with it. I think it's more interesting just making Michael Myers a human being who we don't know if he's related to Laurie Strode or not. Buy it.
I got good news for you, Jeremy.
What?
We're on the same building top. We're on the same building top because, of course, listening to Perri describe it, I was like, yes, Perri, come up here. Please, come up here with us because this is how you need to do a reboot. And for no other reason, because we've seen so many other horror franchises try to somehow play off the BS lore that their bad sequels created, and they just can't do it. So I think you have to eventually start from scratch. I know that there's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch fans out there, and I'm sorry about this news for your sake. However, this is the way that you do a Halloween reboot because you can always cherry pick stuff from Halloween 2 if you want to put it in there. So this is not saying that they cannot have a relationship. This is just saying that all of the events of that movie didn't necessarily transpire for us to have to tell this new story. Rocha, I love the direction that this movie is going in.
This is really tough for me. Because I don't like when they do this, because look, you approve the rights, you let them make these sequels, I take responsibility for your stuff. But if you're gonna go back and try to make the money, I get it. You want to bring the fact that you get Jamie Lee Curtis come back is a fantastic coup. But you put Laurie through so much in all these other sequels, right? I can throw away Halloween 2 and say she was in the hospital, so maybe it was delusions from medicine or how she was medicated. I can accept all of that. That all of that is in her head. The ether, the shooting in the eyes, the setting the guy on fire. I can accept all of that. Loomis coming back all of a sudden, like all of that I can accept as some kind of delusion of hers. But then you created this H2O where she's the head mistress, she changed her name, all this kind of stuff. So you put Laurie through a lot. We find out she was adopted and she has, she forgets about her birth family. Whoever does that, nobody ever forgets her birth family. So they put Laurie through a lot. So what are you going to do? You're going to pick up from, like Jeremy was saying, are you picking up from where she left? She's like 40 years later, and then Michael Myers shows up again. How old is Michael Myers? In his 60s? And how old is and where's Loomis? Is Loomis dead? Is his son now involved? Like, where are all these things that you're going to get involved? And does she come back to the town? And why does she come back to the town? So there's a lot that they could explore. Look, am I excited they're doing this? Absolutely. Am I excited they're throwing away all the other movies? No, I'm not. But that being said, I still buy this idea because I want to see what they can do, and they should be allowed as artists to have the freedom to try to do this and make it work. And if it doesn't work, then I don't know what you do at that point.
I think Michael Myers is a much more interesting and scary villain, to reiterate Jeremy's point, as the shadow. It's just somebody just kind of looming there as opposed to some supernatural presence because, as some of you guys know, I have a butler. And my butler used to go on special missions like one time he was in Burma. And he told me from when he was in Burma, what he learned is that sometimes there's evil out there. They don't have a motive. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Jeremy, that's how I see this Michael Myers.
I can't not hear his... a long time ago, I was in Burma. I'm like, I know the reference. He's Michael Myers is throwing away rubies and just burning them to burn down a forest to get him. But you're right. There's something about these monsters that don't play by the rules. You know, Scream was the first thing I saw in that time in the 90s because we really got into everything horror is supernatural, and Freddy Krueger's hand comes out and takes the Jason mask down, and all these monsters that were trying to kill people were in fact supernatural monsters. And then Scream came out, and I remember how much more effective it was. I was like, I was junior high at the time, but these are students. These are just these people that any one of them could be a maniac like this guy, and that was just much more effective to me. So I'm glad they're taking Michael Myers from what they made him later and taking him back to what he was initially.
I remember seeing The Dark Knight Rises and thinking, like, well, if Batman's injured, can't his butler used to be Rambo, so can't he just put on the suit and go kick Bane's ass and we'll be done with this whole thing in 20 minutes? Not the way the film played out. All right, let's move on to our next topic.
THR reports that Project Almanac director Dean Israelite has signed on to helm Unexplained Phenomenon, a supernatural family adventure from Spielberg's Amblin Pictures. The movie reunites the director with the writers of Project Almanac, Jason Page and Andrew Deutschman, in a story described as E.T. meets Poltergeist, in which a family encounters a mysterious and otherworldly object that begins to change their lives. It soon draws the attention of an expert and her teenage daughter who may have a connection to the object's past. The team will enter active development on the project with a release date yet to be determined. Jeremy, buy or sell Dean Israelite's new movie, Unexplained Phenomenon?
I'm buying it because I don't have any information on it. I'm buying it because of hope. I'm buying it because calling it E.T. is a really bold thing. Unless there's one kid who calls another kid penis breath, it's not like E.T. And that's my problem with these movies, these family movies that come out, is that when kids are alone, I hope Stranger Things has influenced this, or It. It doesn't have to be rated R for it to influence it, but what I like about both of those is that when kids are around kids, they don't talk like they're in church, you know? That they act a little differently. When the cat's away, the mice play. When the parents aren't there, kids act a little differently. E.T. nailed that. Goonies nailed that. A lot of these old movies that people try to emulate now totally nailed that. And when they clean it up for families of all ages and make it this rated G, rated PG romp, it's stale to me because it's not how kids actually act. So I'm hoping, because in Stranger Things they did, I'm hoping they now see like, well, no, you can have a little bit of grit with the kids and make it just a little more real. And I hope they go that route. We'll see. It could be E.T., could be, what was that, Earth to Echo movie? Where they try, was that what it was called?
Something, well,
that was one of the ones where I was like, oh, it's so clean and family and not exactly what, it was just another case of what irritates me about these movies these days. So I'm hoping they go the route that we've seen lately.
Yeah, well, one of the great things about E.T., besides the fact that an alien drinks a Coors, is that you have a family, and so you have that dynamic. So it is kids, and then you also have the fact that there's a mom that you present some information to, but not all the information, as any kid will do. You're not going to be totally honest with what's going on with your parents. I wonder if that plays into this story at all. But the reason why I'm going to give this a buy is not just because of Amblin Entertainment. It's because Dean Israelite, I really like the last two movies that he directed. We'll get to Power Rangers, Perry. I really like Project Almanac as well. I thought that was a great, it wasn't a perfect movie, but the way that he told the story kept me engaged the whole time. And so it's something that I would look forward to him doing something else that has a similar feel in this realm. Without further ado, the director of Power Rangers taking over this movie. What do you think?
Yeah, I knew you were going to go that route. All right, to get it out of the way, I obviously loved Power Rangers to death. He directed a Power Rangers movie that was very much for me as a Mighty Morphin fan. I understand why some people out there might not like it, but if you look at Power Rangers and you look at Project Almanac, there's no denying that he is a very capable and talented director. And I actually think it's a little unfortunate. As much as I loved Power Rangers, he didn't have it easy with his first two feature films. One, going with a really popular 90s property that doesn't really translate in its original form today. So he had to prove all those naysayers wrong and get their butts in the seats. And then with Project Almanac, you have the found footage angle working against you. And I think he did pretty damn good work with that, where he put his own spin on it. He kept the focus on the characters. Again, not a perfect movie by any means, but I think he did great work with both movies that proved to me that he's capable of handling just about anything. So he's the main reason I'm buying this, because like Jeremy said, we don't really know much beyond a log line. There's certainly nothing in that little tiny description that says to me, oh, this is going to be something different and special. There's a hook that you're really going to like. I am curious to see what they mean by it may be starting a franchise with unexplained phenomenon type stories. So the idea of maybe them taking the anthology approach to a franchise excites me, but again, there's so little information here and so little direction that I don't really know what they're doing. So I'm just rooting for Dean Israelite right now.
There's hope on this side of the table. Rocha, does it exist where the Comic-Con flu is?
No, I do not. I sell this thing because Andrew Deutschman and Jason Pagan wrote that Paranormal Activity 4. which wasn't that, I didn't enjoy that one that much, and so it doesn't excite me that they're writing this. And yes, Power Rangers was a good movie, but it wasn't a great movie, and it did a nice job in kind of revitalizing the film. But where are those 6 sequels they were talking about? So, like, to me, it doesn't necessarily excite me that this is the team involved. And just because Spielberg producing it doesn't mean it has the magic touch. We've seen him produce other films. He produces Transformers films, which a lot of you hate. So, like, there's possibility. None of this excites me. And it feels a little bit like Poltergeist, right? The family seeks the help of an expert, and her teenage daughter have a connection with the object, blah, 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 all this stuff going on, and they're starting a trilogy thing. Once again, put one foot down first, then the next foot, then the next foot. To start setting this up as a trilogy, as a franchise, I think is a dangerous thing, because I don't know, it's never been done before. Phenomenal franchise. Like the Paranormal Activity, when they wrote the first one, they didn't go, oh, we're going to write 6 of these. You know, they're just laying the groundwork. So to me, focus on this one, see how it plays out, and then start focusing on 2 and 3. But it's just an interesting story to tackle, but I don't think the right people are attached to it to get me excited that they can handle a trilogy of this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I always get nervous when they're trying to establish a franchise before we even have a movie released. Did anybody catch the Spielberg documentary on HBO yet?
It's on my DVR.
Oh, it is. Okay, Cody's raising his hand. Unfortunately, there's not a microphone in front of Cody's. This isn't Schmoes Live just yet. It's really, really good. It's in-depth. You get a lot of all the great Spielberg movie moments. It talks about his directorial style, goes into his personal life. Really highly recommend it. All right, one more buy or sell. What do we got, Ash?
THR is reporting that 20th Century Fox has optioned the Taylor Adams novel No Exit, setting Logan screenwriter Scott Frank to adapt it into a film. The novel centers on college student Darby Thorne, who, while on the way home to visit her mother, gets stranded in a blizzard at a highway rest stop for a night with 4 strangers. Thorne soon discovers a little girl locked in the trunk of one of the cars, but doesn't know whose car, and without cell phone reception, must figure out who the kidnapper is. No director or release date has been announced at this time. Ellis, buy or sell No Exit from Logan writer Scott Frank.
I love this idea. Like, even just hearing Ashley read the description, I'm like, well, God, whose car is it? We got to get her out of there. This is like, because there's been some movies about like somebody like locked in a car recently that haven't been great. Most of them star Halle Berry for some reason, and they didn't really grab me either way. But seeing this feels like a Murder on the Orient Express, more maybe like an updated version or an Americanized version at a truck stop in some random place. I am really buying into this source material. So, again, don't know a lot about it. Don't know what the casting decisions are going to be. That's going to have a huge influence on the movie. I like the premise, so I'm going to give it a buy. Rocha.
Yeah, I like this idea, too. I think, obviously, Logan, people are still talking about it as a possible Best Picture nominee. Scott Frank does great work. He wrote Minority Report. This is a good writer. So am I excited about this? Am I buying this? Absolutely. Do I like this idea of the way they've set up this whole plot? It's great. And Taylor Adams wrote 2 other books that are fantastic as well. If you haven't read them, get on board and read his stuff. He really does a great job of creating these characters that are put in these situations and putting them and having them figure it out in a way that's unconventional and new. And I enjoy that, because how long have people been writing books, right? For decades, for centuries. And it's like, how are you going to make it new? How are you make it interesting? And he really does that. And so I'm excited to see this team come together. Get me the right actress to play this part, then I'll be more excited, and get me the right director overall, then I'm really excited about it all around. So, but I like this idea because Fox was involved with Logan. So if they're optioning this, then it gets me excited. I buy it.
I'm actually rereading a lot of classics right now.
Ah.
All right, Jeremy, what do you got? It's from Family Guy.
I was like, oh, tell us more, Mark. And you stopped. I thought you were reading. Okay, here we go. I'm buying it too. I like the isolationism. You know, I like the isolated scenario that they're building. I like a good mystery. It's interesting that you can't just be like, oh, you're in the whose trunk was it? But obviously this person probably didn't see the person. They have no idea who it is. It kind of reminds me of, I haven't seen this movie in about 15 years. Remember that movie Identity?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay. I remember liking it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And so the premise kind of reminded me of that a little bit, you know, and now we have cell phones. Everyone has cell phones, so they have to take away the cell phone. So they're like, it's a storm in the middle of nowhere. Cell phones don't work. So now there are no more phones. So anytime something like this happens, there's usually a storm of some sort happening, taking away all cell phone service. I really like it. Buying it.
That's right. Or their provider is Sprint, and this takes place in rural Virginia, because when I go home to see my mom, I ain't making any phone calls for about a week. Perri, buy or sell?
I'm going to buy it, but being just a little skeptical about it. So the first two things that popped into my mind were, even if the cell phones weren't working, couldn't they just check the registration on the cars and IDs? I don't know. Maybe there's a reason that they get around that in the book. The other thing that came to mind, it might be because of the snowy landscape. Have you ever seen the movie ATM where they're trapped in the ATM?
No.
All right. Well, that movie sucked, and I don't know why. This movie probably has nothing to do with the story in this book, but I'm just, when you come up with an idea like this, it could either work really, really well and be super suspenseful, or you could take a misstep and it might not work. But what's making me think it's going to go the other way is the fact that, this is a very accomplished writer, a very accomplished screenwriter too. No Exit also sold really well on Amazon's Kindle Unlimited program. I kind of want to read it now, but if it's a mystery scenario, maybe I should wait and see the movie first so I don't spoil the whole thing for myself. Very curious to see who comes on as director, who takes that lead role, but I'm buying it. I have a very good feeling that this isn't going to be ATM all over again.
Okay, Ashley, got a question for you. You got to answer in 5 seconds.
Okay.
So you pull up to a truck stop.
Okay.
You meet the 4 of us. Then you find out one of our cars has somebody in the trunk. Who done it?
Well, first of all, I love that you came to me for this question because you know how much of a sick human being
Mm-hmm.
I am and that this sounds amazing, but Jeremy definitely did it. Definitely Jeremy.
I'm making that face at her the whole time. Thanks, Asha. You're the best. You really are.
No problem. But this sounds so good. I mean, Scott Frank on as a writer, he's obviously very talented, but I love that squeaky noise. I would have loved someone like Gillian Flynn kind of working on this movie because she did a great job of turning a book into a movie, and it has that true crime kind of feel, and I love true crime. And I do want to read the book now because it just sounds so good, but I don't want to ruin it, so I'm probably going to wait until I see the movie first.
Let me just make a note that Ashley doesn't love the actual crime that happened. She enjoys the podcasts that come out, the documentaries that are made about it that are very interesting, but she's not rooting for death and destruction.
No, not at all.
As far as we know. Jeremy, on the other hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, she said I did it. Don't say that about me.
You've got someone in his
Cover up
trunk
for it.
right now.
What?
You've got someone in your trunk right now.
Some men just want to watch the world burn. We are going to remind you guys that this is by far, by no stretch of the imagination, the only show on Collider Video's YouTube channel. Subscribe right now because you can also check out TV Talk and Heroes, both daily shows later on today. TV Talk going up live at 11 a.m. We also have Schmodown matches. We are in the thick of the playoffs right now. And speaking of Schmodown, you guys can check out the new Movie Trivia Schmodown app. Just released, hot off the press. Download it right now. There's more details at the link in this vid's description, and you can compete against some of your favorite competitors from the league. You can create a league yourself, play against your friends, play against yourself solo. It's a lot of fun. Maybe not play. You can't ask yourself questions. Download the app. It's a lot of fun. And we have a Last Jedi video. We're going to have a lot of Last Jedi content. The trailer dropped on Monday Night Football, and we are going to be digesting it all week long. A lot like the Sarlacc pit. It's going to take about 1,000 years to get through all the great stuff that we got from that trailer, although the movie comes out later this year. All right, let's move on to mailbag. Then we're going to save some time for your live Twitter questions. Go ahead and start tweeting us right now at Collider Video. In the meantime, Ashley, what's in our mailbag?
Rachel writes, hey guys, I recently read Collider.com's article about Martin Scorsese adding on to the hate for Rotten Tomatoes and basically saying it has absolutely nothing to do with real film criticism, then compares it to rating a horse at the racetrack or household appliances in Consumer Reports. What do you think about his comments, and do you ever think someday Rotten Tomatoes will shut down because studios and now A-list directors hate their site? Thanks in advance for taking my question.
It's a great question, Rachel. It's very topical, and I think that from an artistic perspective, I certainly see where Martin Scorsese is coming from. If you work so hard for a year sometimes on a project, then it comes out only to have this baby of yours be belittled into simply a percentage number, that is not fun. That's not a good day at the office. Even if that number is great, it just makes it seem like it's just this quantifiable thing that ceases to be art, and it's just a number. However, if you look at what his statement says, if you're rating a horse at a racetrack, if you're a gambler, you probably want to know what the rating is. If you're buying something that's an appliance, if you go to Best Buy and you're looking around the shop, you probably want to know what Consumer Reports said about it. He also likened it to a Zaggett's Guide. If I'm in a new town, when we used to go on vacations, my dad, the first thing he did was get the Zaggett's Guide to that town and see where it's a good place to eat, where it's a good place to check out a jazz club or a comedy club. Zaggett's Guide actually helps people make make decisions. It doesn't tell you that you need to go do this, but it does tell you, hey, you're a person with a limited amount of money to spend in the world, so here's our recommendation on what your option is. I don't think that's a bad thing just for myself because I trust my own instincts. I trust my own opinions. So I can see a number, or I can see a statistic, and I'm going to say, yeah, that's the information that I will consider, but it's not going to influence me enough. If I want to go see a movie, I'm not letting a number dissuade me from going to do it. I can't speak for all the other audience members out there, but I appreciate what Rotten Tomatoes is able to do because as an audience member who is not made of money, I'm not Scrooge McDuck. I can't go see movies every week. So if I have any indicator that helps me make a decision, I'm going to applaud what they do. I understand that the artists don't like it, but it's something that just the average layperson can utilize when they're making a decision about what movie to go see. And I'll get off the soapbox. Perri, how do you feel?
Yeah, I pretty much am right in line with you on this. My same problem with Rotten Tomatoes and with any review for that matter has always been score and knowing how to use that score. For example, there's a lot of folks out there who maybe will go onto Rotten Tomatoes, see that something has a rotten score, a sub 50 score, and say, oh, that thing is pure garbage. But then when you look at the average, you realize that the average is not that low. Or you could have something that has a 90% and realize, oh, they're only just barely positive reviews. So it's just about knowing how to use their system. And really, I have to give Rotten Tomatoes a lot of credit. It's a genius system. I mean, look at the empire that they've built on that. It is a very useful tool. It is only fair to people who are spending money on a product to get some expert opinion, if you want to call it that, before they drop their hard-earned money on tickets that are becoming more and more expensive. Where it does frustrate me, though, as a critic, is when we do reviews, let's say we talk for 20 minutes about a movie and then everything you said goes out the window because someone doesn't like your score. And, you know, I just had that happen with Blade Runner 2049. There's a lot of things I really liked about that movie. There's a lot of things in that movie that I think are Academy Award deserving. But nobody heard any of that until I said a 7 out of 10. And that to me is the problem. And that problem becomes an even bigger problem when you're working with an aggregate that combines all of those scores, because then it almost reduces it to an extra extent. So I think it's about listening to what people are really saying, using that score in conjunction with that, and then also understanding that Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate that averages these scores, and that 90% doesn't necessarily mean it's a masterpiece.
Jeremy, as a great man once said, you're a loner, Dottie, a rebel. You have a rating system on your YouTube channel when you see a movie, but it's not number-based. It's how you feel about a movie. So is that maybe something you think Mr. Scorsese would appreciate a little more?
No, I think he'd put a number to it and make it a rating like any other, like mine had. For what he's talking about is well, first of all, there's like 100 things I want to touch on. Rotten Tomatoes is great as long as you keep it in perspective and understand how it works. And people need to know if something is good or not. So I understand the need for it, but it's all about perspective. So as for my rating system, I didn't want to put a number to my thoughts and feelings on a movie to kind of negate that, and so I just kind of have these phrase-based things like, would I buy it? Probably. Would you need to be drunk for it? Probably. Can you watch it sober? Yeah, sure. You know, and then you have like the awesome-tacular, which is basically, did it hit me at a personal emotional level, or fanboyism? Sure. And so I have that, but none of it really means a number. But then I think it kind of freaked people out, and they're like, we need a number, so here's now what it means. And now I guess that's what it means. I've been meaning to do a video on my rating system just to clarify, so I'll probably end up doing that at the end of the year. But I get that an artist is never going to like negative reviews, but I also get that Rotten Tomatoes 90% simply means 90% of people liked it 60% of it. You know what I mean? So that's really what Rotten Tomatoes is. So keep it in perspective. It can be fine as long as there's perspective.
When you do your vid on your rating system, I'm going to give it 5 out of 5. Shmo.
Thank you.
Rocha, what is your thoughts on all this Rotten Tomatoes stuff?
This is all smoke and mirrors. To me, it's an established director who I absolutely love, not wanting to be against the people he should be against, which is the public. He's mad about the public using this tool to stop them from going to see a movie. He's mad about the public not being smart enough to read the reviews, because if Rotten Tomatoes just put up a score and then walked away, then sure, bitch all you want. but they don't. They connect the articles from each of the critics so that you can go in depth and read what that critic actually thought. It connects to a link and you can read their actual review. So the problem is that he's mad at that people aren't taking that extra step, maybe aren't exploring a little bit more, maybe aren't doing the legwork on their own. And so his film, that silence film, suffers because of it. He's doing it from a personal place. Just like Perri did from personal place about Blade Runner. That's a personal thing. So I understand the anger, I understand the frustration, but he doesn't want to really be mad at the people he should be mad at, which is the public, because then the public won't go see his movies. If you insult the public, they don't come to you. So to me, I'm tired of Rotten Tomatoes getting shit for this, because I love Rotten Tomatoes to pieces. I use it all the time, and it cooks me up to reviewers I wouldn't normally read. So that's a good thing that Rotten Tomatoes does. I read somebody in Seattle or somebody in Des Moines or some reviewer in a small city in some other state I might not normally read. I'll read and then discover a new reviewer that I enjoy. So Rotten Tomatoes is a great tool. And you're right, Mark, what you said is perfect. Scorsese undercuts his own argument by trying to use these examples that actually are beneficial examples for us as we purchase things, because tickets are going higher and higher and higher. Refreshments, higher and higher and higher. Everything is more expensive to do. So yes, I'm going to be more vigilant about what I spend my money on. And this tool helps. So I wish people would just lay off Rotten Tomatoes. It's such a cop-out. Who you're really mad at is the movie-going public. Have the balls to say that. Then go forward.
And he's wearing Martin Scorsese glasses. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Collider Movie Talk. I want to thank everybody who worked so hard to bring this show to us each and every weekday. First off, Ashley Mova, where can the kids find you?
Wow, that caught me off guard. You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Ashley Mova. Happy Wednesday, guys.
You'll see what I'm doing in a minute. John, Stephen, Rocha, where can the kids check you out?
Yeah, you guys go find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram.
And Perri Nemiroff.
Twitter and Instagram at Nemiroff. And Collider Behind the Scenes and Bloopers is back this Saturday, so check that out.
Last but not least, boy, I hate getting emotional, but sometimes you just got to let it all out. And there's a young man who came a long time ago to Los Angeles for the very first time, and he slept on my red couch, and we shared a box of Crave. We went to California Pizza Kitchen and had a couple shock tops, and it was a good time, and a friendship was born. And that young man's name is Jeremy Jahns. And Jeremy, it gives me no delight, but it does give me satisfaction knowing that you're doing what your heart tells you. You have made the decision to move back to Seattle, Washington, because the people need you up there too.
I don't know that they need me. I don't know that anyone needs me anywhere really. But yeah, I've had fun. It was a year contract and with you guys, and year is over. So what to do? All the friends and family are up there. It's just one of those. You gotta go. Home is where the heart is. Home is there, So I've had fun working with you guys down here. I would come down anytime if you guys want me. And Awesome-tacular gets a season 2. You'll still see me on that, So it is one of those, not to be weird and cheesy or possibly cliche, but life is too short. So I got to spend it with friends. My niece wasn't walking before I came down here. She's walking. I kind of missed it. So family. To quote the great Vin Diesel, family.
My niece is also a huge Fast and Furious fan. She's 3, and she also lives up in Seattle, so I can come visit you from time to time, and I'm sure you're going to come down here from time to time, pop in on Movie Talk, say hi to all of us. There's things happening behind the curtain.
Yeah, there's scramblings.
You get a hug
I get hugs.
from a Ken Knapsack, from a Mark Riley, from all the cast and crew that currently
not bad for a guy.
Nothing else to do but come out here and give you a hug.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Hugs and arms. Hugs and arms.
Here's something else that I'll say is that, somebody comes in here and they give us a piece of their time, a piece of their mind, some of their great opinions. They grace us with the presence of an amazing leather jacket, and you think, I got to give them something. They need something to go away, something they can take from Los Angeles and their friends here to go back up to Seattle. And what do you get for the man that has everything? Well, I'll tell you what you do is that you meet a guy like Jeremy Jahns, and yeah, he's got a lot of stuff in his apartment. He's got a lot of cool hot toys, so I didn't go down that route. No. You and I have had some conversations that aren't just about movies, that are actually about music. I know you have a great record player system in your place. I know that you have a extensive vinyl collection, and I don't want to criticize anybody, but there's some holes in what you own and what you need to own.
I know what you're getting me.
I have something for you. And first of all, this one's an easy progression because this one is going to get you back into the Seattle swing of things. This is the greatest Soundgarden album that was ever put out. Bad Motorfinger. There you go.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Thanks,
dude,
man.
it's amazing. The first track is Rusty Cage. They go in right into Outshine. It's phenomenal. It's a nice mix of grunge and a hard rock coating. And then if you don't have this too, which anybody should have in their record collection, there's no reason why any young man or woman should not own Van Halen's debut album. It's over 10 million sold. Platinum times 10 for a reason. So enjoy the music. Unless you have a record player in your car, you're not going to be able to jam up on the way to Seattle. Once you get there, you have some parting gifts. And maybe you put on Eruption, and one day you think about a young man named Mark Ellis, and you come down to visit him for a weekend.
This is way better than the pie I thought I was going to I saw the Revenge for the Spectacular Shoots. Funny thing, I was at Amoeba Music yesterday, and I almost bought this. But I didn't.
I appreciate you considering it. I took it a step further. Enjoy that. And thank you so much for your contributions to Schmoes and to Collider Studios with your appearances on Movie Talk and awesome tack. We love you to death, buddy, and you're always welcome around these halls.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I really do. Like, this is remarkably, is way more sentimental than I thought it was going to be today. You can find me at my place in Seattle, sleeping in until 4 p.m., just doing my YouTube videos. Per normal, per usual. But thanks for making it a lot of fun. You guys are you're a really great family here, you know, and I love the synergy of the people you see on screen as well as the people you don't see on screen. Cody, Cobster, Adam, talking about all those guys. They're truly the greatest. And you guys, it was a lot of fun. It was a great year, and I walked back with stories and smiles, and apparently 2 records I didn't know I was going to get. So thanks.
Enjoy the music, my man. My name is Mark Ellis, and on the show tomorrow, I'll leave. I mean, just for the weekend. I'm going to see Cincinnati, the Funny Bone. In the meantime, to honor Jeremy Jahns, I'm going to do the little punch to the camera, and then you're going to see a really ugly guy in a nice shirt. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.